In this video, we will show you how to replace your upper door hinge on this Mercury Grand Marquis. Let's get started. Okay friends, let's get started on our job. Before we go any further with the lower hinge, let's make sure that we mark where the original hinge is located on the body of the vehicle and where it's mounted to the door itself. Typically, when you do this, you want to try to use a paint marker of some sort. I'll just go ahead and use what I've got. I'm going to come right in here, make a line. We'll do the same down along the bottom. And then for good measure, it's right along here. Now we can do the area where the hinge mounts to the door itself. Let's mark where the upper hinge meets with the body of the vehicle. And now where the hinge meets the door. The next thing you want to do is make sure you have some support underneath the door itself. I'm using 2 jack stands, and you'll notice that I put a pad in between the jack stand and the door so I don't damage the paint. It's extremely important. The next thing we'll do is put down the window, and we're going to try to slide a blanket in between the door and whatever it is you're going to be resting it against, once again to protect the paint. At this point, we're going to start dismounting the door from the hinges. To do that, you'll find that you have 2 13mm headed bolts holding each hinge to the door. Remove all 4 mounting bolts. Keep in mind, as you do this, the door is going to come loose and you want to make sure that it is secured. Do the same to the lower. There we are, that's broken free. Now we're going to grab onto the door carefully and start pulling it away from the door jamb, being extremely careful not to scratch any of our paint or damage the wiring. There we are. With the door slid out of the way, We'll continue on to our 3 pieces of mounting hardware that hold the upper door hinge to the body of the vehicle. You'll find closest to us along the rear here a 13mm nut that's mounted to a stud. Remove that nut. There's that one. The next thing we'll do is make our way to the outside of the vehicle for our next 2 13mm headed bolts. To do these, typically it's a good idea to use a swivel of some sort, and of course you do want to protect the paint. There's that one. Now we'll make our way in here to the forward one. This is typically where your hinge will come loose from the body of the vehicle. Just reach inside and hold onto that hinge while I remove this last bolt. Now we can pull the hinge out through the interior of the door area. There it is, friends. With that out of here, let's have a look at this area. You'll find that you have a stud that protrudes out from the body of the vehicle. If it looks like it's broken or damaged, you can go ahead and make your way inside of the vehicle to remove the other end. There'll be a 13mm nut holding it in place. Otherwise, as you can tell, typically these are held in place. You shouldn't have to replace them. You'll find with the new hinge, it does come with a new stud, just in case you have to replace it. Now on our application, it's in good condition, so we'll just continue on to removing the 13mm headed nut from this stud, and then remove the stud from the hinge before we continue our installation. Continue on to cleaning the body of the vehicle where your brand new hinge will go. Once it's wiped down, just give it a quick inspection. And then let's get ready for our installation. Okay, let's get ready to install this hinge. We'll line up our mounting hole with the mounting stud and start on that 13mm headed mounting nut. I'll snug this up a little bit, leaving it loose enough that we can still maneuver the hinge around to start in our other 2 bolts. Now let's make our way to the outside of the vehicle. We'll carefully get in between the door and the fender and start in each of our mounting bolts before we snug either of them. Now, before we start snugging these up, let's just pay attention to the markings, make sure that our door hinge is aligned properly. Then you can snug up each of these mounting bolts. Once each of them are bottomed out, torque them to 22 foot-pounds. As you can tell looking at this, it's difficult to get a torque wrench into this area. We'll just go ahead and continue by tightening it with our 13mm wrench. Once you have the hinge mounted to the vehicle, we're going to continue on to mounting the hinges to the door. Now when you do this, we're going to have to slide the door back up against the hinges, and you want to make sure that it's aligned properly before you continue on by tightening any of the mounting bolts. We'll just bring this right over, hold it in place, and then start in all 4 of our mounting bolts. At this point, you might find that you have to wiggle the door up and down or even forward and backward to get everything aligned properly. We'll leave that nice and loose. Do the same to the other 3. All right, we'll leave that one loose as well. Continue down the line. The next thing we want to do is try to make sure that the door aligns properly. If it doesn't, you can try to adjust the door at the hinge where it connects to the door itself, or at the hinge where it connects to the body of the vehicle. Once it's aligned, snug up each of the bolts and then torque these to 22 foot-pounds as well. Before we torque that mounting hardware, let's continue on to checking the alignment of the door. While you're doing this, be extremely slow and careful. You don't want to damage your paint. We just want to make sure everything lines up properly. Just pay attention to the body lines. Once that looks like it's good, let's make sure it latches. Double check all of the body lines, making your way around the door to make sure it's not hitting anywhere it shouldn't. Assuming that looks good, let's continue on to tightening that mounting hardware and torquing it to 22 foot-pounds. With the car all back together, let's just test the door functionality one last time. Perfect. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.